Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to talk specifically about some recommendations I have for AK upgrades from the standpoint of a left-handed shooter. So, in the past, just a few weeks ago I did a video talking about, because I just finished upgrading this rifle, about my recommendations on just general AK setup. So now I wanted to focus in a bit more on specifically left-handed use. So if you're interested in just general usage, I would recommend you to watch that video. And I'm going to skim over a fair bit of topics. This is going to be solely on pretty much, you could think of this video as an expansion of that video. So generally, even for left-handed use, I would mostly keep things the same, but there's a few slight differences that would definitely optimize the AK for left-handed use. Now, as a little bit of a upfront disclaimer, I am right-handed myself. I do shoot right-handed. However, I do practice. I need to practice more of it, but I practice a fair bit shooting left-handed as well. I try to be ambidextrous when shooting rifles, and there are some other things I do tend to do better with my left hand outside of shooting. But let's get started. I'm going to talk about this. So originally my reasoning for creating this video was I originally got a comment asking about my recommendations for safeties for left-handed shooters on AKs. So that's what I'm going to start with. Then there's just a few more points that I do want to touch on. So as for safeties, my general recommendation for a safety, if you're right-handed, is to use an index finger safety. You've got Krebs, you've got Armicon in the case of the one I've got on here. However, if you are left-handed, this won't really do you very much good, because in the case of left-handed use, you're still going to be up here, you're still going to have to hit that down and then come back. Because, yeah, unless you have abnormally long thumbs. However, speaking of thumbs, one thing I don't really like on right-handed use, but is actually really nice if you're using this left-handed, is these thumb safeties, which are also called ambi safeties, aptly named. So these ambi safeties, or thumb safeties as I'm going to call them, instead of having an extra shelf here for your index finger, the shelf instead extends back and it goes, well, towards your thumb. So if you get one of those safeties, you can imagine, I don't have one on here currently, but you would just put your thumb right here and just drop it down. So if you're setting up your AK for left-handed use primarily, or to be completely ambidextrous, I would highly recommend a thumb safety. Because otherwise this type of safety, it really will not do anything for you at all if you're left-handed. The next thing I wanted to talk about that will especially come into play if you do get one of those thumb safeties is the sling and how you attach it to your rifle if you're left-handed. So, of course, if you're right-handed, you already have a built-in sling loop up here in the front, and generally it'll line up pretty well with your, at least with a standard stock just on the left side, which works well for right-handed use. If you are left-handed, however, there's a few options you can use. Personally, I would recommend fighting a stock that has a sling swivel under it, like this Zenico PT3. Works great. There are a fair bit of other stocks like that on the market. The other option you have for sling attachment in the rear, that actually will cause an issue if you're left-handed, if you use a quicker, thumb safety, is those sling adapter plates that go underneath your pistol grip. Unfortunately, I don't have one on hand to show it, but you can just look at the dimensions, and there might be some exceptions to it, but generally, those sling adapter plates are going to stick out right about here, and with a thumb safety, when you drop that down, it's going to collide into that. And like I said, with some it may not completely collide, but what that's going to do is it's going to be so close that it's going to really restrict where your sling can go, and it's not going to be very comfortable. And then to attach the front part of your sling, it's pretty easy in this case. Just find some sort of Picatinny or M-lock or whatever type of attachment system you have on your handguard. Just find something that interfaces with it and you're good to go. Personally, I quite like direct attachment of slings. It's kind of old school. This is just like a random one I picked up. I'm going to be using on a different build I have going on right now. But I like those because they don't create very much noise at all. And sure, QDs are nice if you switch the sling around between rifles, but even if you're direct threading, it's really not that hard to switch them around. I can get it. It will get annoying if you do that constantly, but generally I have a sling for all my rifles personally, and I would recommend doing the same if you have a lot of rifles that you use pretty regularly. And then the last thing I want to talk about is your light placement. So in my case, how I have mine set up on the bottom actually works pretty well, whether you are left or right-handed. Of course, the pressure pad is going up here to the top, which is a pretty ambidextrous way of doing it. It's in just one spot that you can reach either way. If you don't like mounting your light to the bottom, or you just prefer it somewhere else for whatever reason, one thing I would recommend you think about, that I've seen a few other people make mistakes on, myself included a few years ago, is even if you have a pressure pad, make sure that you mount the light somewhere where you can reach it with your, let me switch this around, where you can reach it with your thumb, just in case that pressure pad does go down, because they do from time to time. So in the case of left-handed use, I would probably say put it somewhere on the right side of the gun, like one of those offset mounts, and that would work pretty well. So that about covers it. There's really not a whole lot I would do differently. As I said, if you watch that other AK upgrades video I did on recommendations, basically everything else would be the exact same. One other tiny point I did want to just really quickly mention is the muzzle attachment, and just a really quick little mistake. This would actually apply if you're right or left-handed, but it's a mistake I've seen some other people make. So the problem I wanted to mention with muzzle attachments, specifically with muzzle brakes, this doesn't matter as much if you use a flash hider, but specifically with muzzle brakes, a problem I see is that a lot of people tend to angle it either one way or another, and you kind of have that on the original slant brake as well that comes on AKMs. But what I wanted to mention is ideally try to keep it just 12 o'clock. If you're noticing more recoil to one angle or one direction or the other, that is generally a problem with how you're holding the rifle with your footwork. If you have your feet pointing towards the target correctly, you should feel a bit of tension on your strong side, kind of in your hip area. So if you're left-handed, of course, be over here. If you don't have both your feet pointing towards the target, I've found in my experience over the years, is it's going to allow for the rifle to open up at that kind of angle. But anyway, that about covers it. Hopefully this was informative. I don't shoot a huge amount left-handed, so just keep that in mind. So if there's any other ideas that you have, if you will shoot primarily left-handed, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave those as well. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.